Hi everyone, welcome to my channel Stalk My Closet. Today I am sharing cutting of maxi dress with cutout shoulder. This is the detailing: bodice with darts, cutout shoulder and circle skirt. And also these are the measurements we need. To make this dress I am using rayon fabric and I have 3.5 meter of fabric. So let's get started. I'll start with the bodice and these are the calculations we will need. To cut the bodice, I have folded the fabric by half in width and now I'll fold it again. I'm marking this line to trim the uneven fabric on the top. Now I'll mark all the measurements. Firstly, shoulder. Take half of your shoulder width. Like in my measurement, shoulder width is 13.5 inch. Half of it would be 6.75 inch. But back neck depth is 5 inch. So I am adding 0.25 inch to shoulder. 6.75 plus 0.25 is 7. Now from this point mark shoulder slope, half inch downwards. And for neck width from the center mark a point at 2.5 inch. Join these points. Now from shoulder slope point mark armhole. In my measurement armhole round is 14. Half of it would be 7. So I'll mark a point at 7 inch. I'll just extend this point. Now from this point go 1 inch inwards and join these points. From top mark a point at 10.5 inch, the apex point. And the length of bodice, which is 13.5 inch in my measurement. I'm adding 1 inch for seam allowance. Now for chest I'm adding 2 inch of ease. In my measurement chest is 33 inch. So 33 plus 2 is 35 and dividing it by 4 I'll get 8.75 inch. For bust again I am adding 2 inch of ease. In my measurement bust is 34. 34 plus 2 is 36 and dividing it by 4 I'll get 9 inch. So I'll just mark a point there. Now for waist again I am adding 2 inch of ease. In my measurement waist is 27 inch. 27 plus 2 is 29 and dividing it by 4 I'll get 7.25 inch. So I'll mark a point at 7.25 inch. And I'm also adding waist dart. So from center mark a point at 3.5 inch. And from the top mark the apex point, which is 10.5 inch in my measurement. Now from this point mark half inch on both sides and join both these points to this point. So for dart I need 1 inch. I'll add 1 inch to this measurement. This was 7.25 inch. I'll mark a point at 8.25 inch. And also I'll leave around 2 inch of seam allowance and I'll trim excess after stitching the darts. Now for armhole curve, from here mark a point at 1 inch diagonally. Now take center of these lines. This is 7 inch, so midpoint would be 3.5 inch. Now I'll make front armhole curve and back armhole curve. So this is a marking for bodice, and now I'll cut it. Now before cutting the front armhole curve, separate the back, fold it again, match the endpoints and cut the front armhole curve. So bodice cutting is completed, and now I'll cut the skirt. Before cutting the skirt on the fabric, I'll show you how to fold the fabric and mark the measurements on the paper. So let's say this is the length of fabric and this is the width. Firstly, I need to fold the length by half. So this is on fold now. Now hold this end and fold it diagonally to form a triangle. We need this triangle to cut the skirt. Now keep it like this. This is the length. Now for measurements, from the top I'll mark the radius, which is waist round plus ease, and divided by 3.14, the pi value. Like in my measurement, waist is 27 and I'm adding 2 inch of ease, so 27 plus 2 is 29, and dividing it by 3.14, I'll get approximately 9.2 inch. So I'll take a round figure and I'll mark a point at 9 inch from the top. Let's say this is 9 inch. Now mark the same measurement on the other side and in between. So this is the waist. Now from this point, mark the length of skirt, which would be full length minus bodice length. As in my measurement, full length is 53 inch and bodice length is 13.5 inch. So 53 minus 13.5 is 39.5 inch. So I'll take the length 39.5 inch. Now measure length from the top and mark the same measurement on the other side. Just keep the measuring tape on the top and mark the same measurement in between. So I have marked the measurements and this is how it looks. This is waistline and this is bottom line. We need to add seam allowance at the bottom and the top. So this is skirt marking. Now I'll cut it. We have 2 layers for both front and back, and now I'll cut it on the fabric. So I have folded the fabric just like I did on the paper. Now from top I'll mark the radius, which is 9 inch. Now from this point I'll mark the length of skirt, which is 39.5 inch, and I'm adding 1 inch for seam allowance. Now measure the length from the top and mark the same on the other side and in between. So this is the marking for skirt, and now I'll cut it. So this is skirt, and now I'll cut the sleeves. Cutout shoulder, also known as cold shoulder, is very popular nowadays, and also it's very easy to DIY. There are a lot of variations in shape of cutout. You may want a smaller or larger opening. Just remember, you can always start smaller and make it bigger if needed, as gravity will pull it down and make the cutout look a little bigger than it actually is. To cut the sleeves, I'm using basic sleeve pattern, which I have shared earlier. I'll share the link in the description box. You can check it out from there. Now I'll just place a sleeve pattern on the fabric, and I'll mark the length, which is 12 inch, and I'll trace the sleeve pattern. Now to mark the front curve, just open the sleeve and trace the front curve. Now join these points, and I'm leaving 0.75 inch of seam allowance at the bottom. Now to make the cutout, I'll mark a point at 4.5 inch from the top. And now take the midpoint of this line. This is 8 inch, so midpoint would be 4 inch. Now I'll join these points with a slight curve. Now just add seam allowance on the sides. And now I'll cut it. So with this, cutting of my maxi dress is completed. Thanks for watching. Hope you like this video. If you do, please don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you soon. Till then, take care. Bye bye.